Welcome to the Dixie Doggers podcast. We're here to share knowledge and heritage. We hope y'all enjoy. Southern Cross. It's the best cut gear in the business. We run it on our dogs. Hit up Dave Williams at Southern Cross Cut Gear. Go to www.hogdoggear.com. If you're looking for Brahma and Brahma Cross cattle, Marc Rankin with the Rankin Ranch 38 Cattle Company, he specializes in them. He is the man for the job. He's based out of Oglethorpe County, Georgia, and you can contact him at 407-832-2077.
If you're buying or selling land, farms, or hunting property, these folks know land. Phil Wilson with UC Hunting Properties, 678-791-3483.
All right, everybody. Nate Joey here with the Dixie Doggers podcast coming to you. We have an outstanding guest with us today. We've had a lot of people ask about getting him on. We got Mr. Mike Cauley with Bayou Cajun Plotts with us today. How you doing, Mr. Mike?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
We are still alive.
Mm-hmm.
I hear you. That's a good.
Yeah, it's a good thing. Trying to get over this dead flu or whatever I've had for almost 3 weeks now.
Yeah,
it's been pretty tough. So, but we got a lot of listeners. Nathan and I, we predominantly hog hunt. And man, I've heard your name ever since I've been into any kind of hog dog world for sure. About your plots and stuff. And I've actually had a couple of dogs over the years that were off some of your bloodlines. It's been years ago. We run a lot of cur dogs, and I had that Big John, that buddy dog called Big John, and then we had what was the female's name? June, Johnny and June, and them two right there were some fine hounds for sure. They were rough though, my goodness.
Do you remember what they were off of?
No, sir, I don't. I do still have that one's papers in the house. The guy that got him, he told me, I told him, I said, well, I got papers and stuff. He said, I don't need no papers. I said, okay, whatever you want to do, buddy. So, but I really don't. It's been, Lord of mercy, it's been what, 10 years?
At least.
Around 10 years or so since I've ran any. But so tell our listeners out there, because we're all over the world now, like 50-something countries, and tell them who you are and what all you're about, and give us a little history on how you got started in all this.
Okay, well, as you said, I'm Mike Cauley. I don't remember a time going back to childhood that I didn't have a dog. In fact, when I was probably 5 or 6 years old, I had a big collie dog. And we roamed the woods. I was very fortunate. We had a big stretch of woods right behind the house that our parents' house backed up to. And naturally, it had a creek. So me and all the kids my age, we were up and down that creek every day. But that collie dog would tree squirrels. We'd take him to the ballpark where rabbits would come out. And if we got on the right side and made that rabbit run across the field, that collie would run them down.
Mm.
So I had an early start with dogs catching game. And then when I was probably early teenager, I had a cur dog, and he was exactly what you'd call a meat dog. He would tree squirrels, coons, kill nutrients, you name it. He was a dog that would just get after everything, which as a kid I loved, because I was into killing.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, it wasn't until I moved on from there, had running walkers, deer dogs, and all that. Then I got into coon dogs, and right before that, I had a pretty long stretch with retrievers, and that's where the name Bayou Cajun Kennels actually came back around 1972. So, but moved in. I guess I was 18 when I first started hog hunting a little bit with a friend of mine, and we were shooting them then. We weren't hunting with dogs, and then we got a bulldog, and we used to ride the levee in the evening, and we'd see a little sounder of hogs come out. We'd get down on the other side of the levee, get straight across, and put that bulldog's head across the levee where he could see him. would turn him loose. But we caught maybe 1 out of 5, 7 hogs like that, and it wasn't long after that we got cur dogs, and that's basically how I got into it. I met some guys over in Chalmette, I guess, when I was about 25, started hunting with them, and so
yes, sir.
the rest is history, I guess you would say.
Yeah, you've made pretty good history with these dogs, because I mean, there's a lot of people that are running your stock, and they have been very successful from what I can see and what I can tell.
Well, they're like every other breeder or hunter. You got good ones and you'll have culls.
Yes, sir.
But the main thing, you've got to hunt them.
Yes,
and I've always said this. Had a kid wanting to pick him a puppy, and he wanted the best one. And I told him, I said, the best one out of that litter is going to be the one that's hunted the most.
Amen.
So that's.
I'm glad you brought that up right there, because that was actually something I had later on down in the show there. I was, going to ask you, what advice would you give somebody who was picking a puppy, and what makes a good puppy? How can you tell if it's going to be the best puppy? And I really like that right there, because I always say that, the success and the failure is 90% or better the handler. If you don't put him in the woods, he's not going to do it.
The best bred dogs out there, I see people all the time. They leave them in the pen till they're a year or so old,
mm-hmm.
and they take them out expecting them to go to with the old dogs. Well,
mm-hmm.
some do. The majority of them aren't. They're going to be lost out there.
Yes.
They won't have a clue. You got to get them out, full with them, socialize them, just spend a lot of time with them.
Yes, sir.
There's no way of making a good dog.
No, Lord, I wish there was sometimes, but because what was it, day before yesterday, Nate? We carried puppies out,
mm-hmm.
and we've been we're running behind, about a month behind, and I should have already had these pups out, and we've had a lot of issues with tracking systems and all. It's one thing after the other. But I said, I don't care what happens. If I got to walk them for 40 miles, we're going to get these puppies on a pig. And the good Lord smiled on us, and we had one about 75 pounds waiting on us. And I said, well, this is going to be either really easy or really hard. And it was not really easy. That rascal dove off a bluff and went down about 200 foot in elevation, then went back up about 175 more foot in elevation on the other side, and got in this little feeder creek. We live in a pretty mountainous area, and that every puppy went in there. All my superstar bay dogs were really good bulldogs at the time. They had that poor little pig stretched out, and I got in there, and instead of just letting them have their heyday and do all that, I get in there and I try to put them back because I want them to bay.
Right.
And I know in the past I've done it where I just let them have one, let them do their thing. But I was like, no, we're gonna push them back and let them know. And it took about 15 minutes. And in that 15 minutes, I was standing there with the pig, and all the dogs were baying.
Yeah, that's good.
But that 15 minutes is the most important 15 minutes of their life to me.
Yeah.
And if you're not there doing it, then how do you know what you got?
That's it exactly. You have to show them, and when you get too many pups or dogs together, they get gritty. They get catchy.
That's right.
So
that was the issue that we had. We had too many,
mm-hmm.
and I knew that going into it. I even said that. I said, "Boys, this is going to be something here, I imagine." And but at the same time, I knew what I was going into, so that made it a little better.
Right. And
go ahead.
Same thing. Like every February, we've been waiting all deer season, to get dogs out, and I've got a big event. I've got a 25-acre training pen, and so my young dogs know what the ball game's all about as far as running a hog and all.
Okay.
Not the management area. You got to kill them anyway. So
yes, sir.
We have too many dogs in. They catch way too many. So it's but we're training. So
That's right.
We'll be back after a quick break.
A quick thanks to supporters of the Dixie Doggers podcast: Southern Cross Cut Gear, UC Hunting Properties, Rankin Ranch 38 Cattle Company, Animal Housing Solutions, Boars N Broads, Ada Y Transport, Crockett Taxidermy and Processing.
And the only reason that we've even went to the more, I don't want them super loose, but I want them to back up and bay. Like in normal circumstances, one that's 75 pounds, I really wouldn't care if they stretched it, because we got to kill everything where we're at as well.
right,
But in other states, we might be able to have a good bay.
right. Yeah, and I myself, I prefer for the bulldogs to do the catching, and good plots all busted up. But, and I'm our group, we've got too many dogs, and we all want to hunt our dogs. So, that, unless it's an exceptionally big boar, that can really back them up, they're pretty much catching everything. And, that's not hunting smart.
Yes.
That's, we get a lot of vet bills, and I don't much care for that either, but, that's just part of it.
And you said it. I mean, that's part of it. But even, like I said, even though they were all, I want them to bay, that doesn't mean that that's what they're going to do every time, by no means. And the more dogs you have, like you said, it seems like the more they're going, especially with them, with the Plotts. I've yet to see many Plotts that once there was a couple of them that they wouldn't going to hang him. That they're greedy. They're greedy dogs. All the ones I've seen anyways.
Well, not all of them are, but here's my dilemma.
Okay.
I like to bear hunt, and that's all you can call me as a recreational bear hunter, because I don't live in bear country. I have to travel.
Yes, sir.
Go to bear country. We used to go to Canada every year, and now I go to Wisconsin for about 3 weeks out of the year. And I was in a club in Georgia. So, but it's not like I'm living there in bear country where I can hunt them every day of the season. But the whole deal is you need a grittier dog for bear hunting than you do hog hunting.
Yes, sir.
Like I said earlier, I would prefer them to back up and bay and, let the bulldogs do the catching. But, there's such a fine line between too much grit, not enough grit. And
yes.
So it's, so for the most part, yeah, my dogs have to get a few cuts or licks in, before they'll back up and bay.
I got you. Well, you said you had these retrievers and all these other type dogs. What made you get into the Plotts? What really got you into them?
Well, I had read about them, and most people don't realize Louisiana had an importation of Russian boar, and that was in the early 70s. And they came off the Powderhorn Ranch in Texas. So, when we got them in here, and I had a pretty good line of cur dogs. These dogs had a lot of hunt and a lot of stick. And my main criteria for culling Plotts was that first 2 years I had them, I thought they were the sorriest dogs going. It took me a while to find what I wanted. But anyway, those Russians, if you didn't catch them right off the bat, they were gone, all day races. And I used to have a cur dog that he would run till the Plotts gave out. He was a freak. He'd go on and bay the hog. He was an all day dog. I took him up bear hunting. He stayed 24 hours on a bear with one or two of Joe Hudson's dogs. And Joe said, I didn't know cur dogs could run that long. I said, I didn't know either. I never had him on a hog that long. But anyway, I got into the Plotts, and I actually got into them first for coon hunting, and had some pretty good dogs. And then when I started, with the dogs, I started or got into the Plotts. I had them and the cur dogs.
Yes.
But then I guess it was around 2000. My best cur dog just couldn't reproduce himself. And to be fair to him, we never bred him to a cur dog as good as him. So from there on, I just went straight Plotts, and I had the Plotts from the early '80s on.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of lines did you start out with? Oh, I'm sorry.
You would have to go back like 8 generations to find a wings bred dog.
Okay.
I've got a lot of wings if you go back that far.
Yes, sir.
I've got a lot of swampland breeding, which is Leroy hog breeding. And Leroy and Everett Wings basically started out with the same kind of dogs, and then they bred back and forth.
Oh, okay.
So it's but like I said, you'd have to go really far back.
Yes, sir.
And you know how it is. You hear all the time on the internet, I want wings bred dogs.
Oh, yeah.
There are no more wings bred dogs.
Yes,
now,
sir.
There are a handful of people that have taken those wings bred dogs and bred them themselves and never out of it. But those aren't wings bred dogs anymore. That's their dog.
Amen. Hey, I'm so glad you said that. There's in the bulldog, the game dog side of things over the years, I've heard so many times, and you still hear it today. Oh, this is a Jeep, Red Boy, Rascal, Yellow John, or one of these dogs. It's bred like that. It's off of that. So, man, yeah, Jeep's been dead since the late '70s.
Yeah,
like it's not. That I guess he's been dead 40-something years. It's been bred so many times now that blood's no longer there. Like you said, it's whoever's breeding it and continuing it. It's their stuff now.
Right.
Because it's going to completely change after 4 or 5 generations. It's about all gone.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you can make one outcross or just a regular cross and lose everything like Everett Wings ever bred for,
Yes,
so
sir.
that's, people don't think a lot, and not all hunters want the same thing. They're going to breed for their criteria.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. There's a lot of them that they get, I can't say kennel blind, but like you said, they breed for their criteria. And after a little while, that's the only dog that matters to them.
Right.
And they can't see it any other way. That like if you have if you've got a really loose bay dog that'll walk bay a 200-pound boar hog, and that might work great for you, but it doesn't work for me. I don't want to walk a hog for 4 hours,
That's it.
But some of those get so hung up on that criteria that's the only way a dog should be bred up. And like you said, they can make two crosses and then everything. Well, one cross, but 2 or 3, and it's really gone for sure.
Yeah.
So what do you look for in your Plott hounds? Like, I mean, what are you looking for as far as the actual conformation, the look, the size, the weight, and all that stuff, and then also as far as the characteristics of it?
Well, and this is a roundabout answer, but
yes, sir.
How everybody wants a silent Plott.
Mm-hmm.
I've had several over the years that were getting really tight mouthed, and I could have probably made a fortune breeding those tighter mouth dogs together, but that's not what I like. If a hound can smell it and move it, I want him barking. That's just me. I like the sound of the dog cold trailing, and I like to hear the jump, and then either the bay or race. But you know how all these hogs, break and run nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's not so much if a dog opens or not, it's the amount of dogs on the ground. Like, yes, I can take several of these dogs out there, put them out by themselves, and I get a lot of bays. And cause, like, if I take 3 or 4 of my grown dogs, if I were to cast them out, they might start out together, but then you'll see them on the screen. Mm-hmm. They're all split up going their own way. And that's another that I've always bred for. I want a dog that can do it by himself. Hog hunting, we have too many split races. Yes, and if the dog won't stay bay or hook by himself, he's worthless. And that's probably been the biggest cold factor I've had in the early years. starting out, I couldn't find a Plott that would stay bayed by himself.
Really?
So it's maybe I was just trying the wrong ones, but anyway.
I mean, it happens. Like, is there? Do you think that that's all a genetic trait that's bred into that line of dogs to where they just don't want to stay hooked by themselves, or would you say it's more an individual trait of a dog?
I would say a lot of it's genetic, and I'm not going to mention names, but we tried between my buddy 5 dogs from this one breeder.
Mm-hmm.
They trailed good, they ate good together, but not one they bayed by themselves. So, and that's 5 dogs. So I would say it's in that line.
Yeah, that's 5 of them. That definitely that's quite a few. Huh? That's kind of. I've never really looked at that side of it as far as that, because we generally. We were running a lot of the real rough dogs. Most of them were just running catch dogs, curs and crosses, and most of them had a little bird dog and bulldog mixed in them. So they weren't going to be bayed at all. They were going to be caught, and they would all do it by themselves. But the actual bay dog stuff is still kind of new to us. To me, I've had bay dogs for 20 years, but starting to breed for certain things is new to me on the bay dog side of it. And that was one of the things I was really looking at, is a dog that will stay bayed by itself. Because we've had them, like you said, they'll go in there with other dogs and you can't beat them. But by themselves, they'll find them and they'll sit down with them. But after a few minutes, I mean, they're gone. They'll roll out.
Yeah, and it's not so much as a grit thing, because I've seen dogs that weren't gritty at all, but they'd stay bayed by themselves all day.
Yes, sir.
And that's hard to pinpoint what causes a dog to leave once the game is bayed up. But that being said, I would rather have a grittier dog that I know is going to stay there.
Yeah, definitely.
And can take a whip, and this young dog I've got out there now, he's been bad luck from the beginning. He was 8 months old. He got cut up by a boar and herniated, and we knew exactly when it was. And I wish I didn't know what kind of hog it was before I turned those pups in. But anyway, we heard the bay, we heard the roar and all. But when we finally caught the pup, 45 minutes or so later, he had herniated. You could see the intestines inside his so normally I would have, did a little exploratory surgery, and we got home real late the evening, and if one of the intestines would have been punctured, that's above my pay grade. So
yes, sir.
I waited the next morning, took him to the vet, and he had like 3 loops, inside the skin, but outside the abdominal wall. And so that was $750.
Yeah.
But the thing was, that pup ran 45 minutes or so after he was cut, like that.
Yeah.
I take him up bear hunting in Wisconsin. He's about a year old then. On his 3rd day, I get on a bear on the ground, and my buddy Andy's going to him, and he heard the roar. He heard the dog get caught and all. So he's getting in there. The bear starts walking. They walked another mile before those dogs treed him. Well, that dog's at the tree treeing, but he was hurt. Andy took him to the vet. He had a dislocated hip and 3 broken ribs, but he was still there. That's sick. That's wanted. And so anyway, that's kind of what I like. I want a dog that's going to stay.
Yeah, that seems to be what I have found a lot of people lack on is in their pack of dogs. And I'm not, for listeners out there in the world, please, I'm not picking on nobody. I've got dogs that do the same thing, but it's like they'll have 1 or 2 good dogs over the course of many years, like you said, that will stick it no matter what. I mean, they're going to stay there. They're going to stay bayed. They're going to stay hooked, whether they're hurt, come hell or high water. And if you could find out what, if you could take those dogs and try to replicate them, that, that would seem like the ultimate dog, or the ultimate characteristic to breed for there is to have them to stay hooked. And then being independent would be be another good one there.
Right.
So how many dogs do you generally turn out on a hog hunt?
It depends, like on where we're at and all. Like, we might start out with 2 or 3, and then if the hogs break and run, we'll just add to them, especially the puppies. Mm-hmm. And, I don't like, like this place we hunted this past weekend, there are a lot of deer. And I know y'all got a lot of deer. Y'all are north.
Yes. We have a lot of deer. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, I hate to set a pup up for failure if a hog's been there, say at 12 o'clock, and you've had a dozen deer in there at 4 o'clock. Mm-hmm. So I'll put older dogs out to get it started, and and then we'll just pack to them. But normally, if the hog keeps running, we might have quite a few dogs in there. Just listen.
Just let them roll, huh?
I do like to hear a race.
Yeah. We did an interview the other night. Several guys were on. We were all talking, and we had a viewer question, and they asked, what was the name? They asked, how long could a boar hog run? At 12 miles an hour. It
was like basically
double digit speed. How long could a boar hog run?
Yeah.
So what do you think on that? I know it would depend on the temperature but.
Okay. This goes back about, let's see, eight years ago, because my Hank dog's 9. He was a year old at the time. We ran a hog, and I figured out we're running for 8 hours. We started him at 6:30. We bait him at 2:30. Mm-hmm. I took that speed, which this is slow compared to cur dogs, but this is all cut over we're in.
Yes, sir.
The average speed, or the slowest speed was 5.5 miles an hour. The fastest speed was 7.5 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. I took the slowest speed, multiplied it times the 8 hours we ran him. That was 44 or 45 miles. Wow. And now you want to hear the kicker?
Yeah.
We ran that same hog yesterday and got outrun.
Really?
Me and this good buddy of mine that hunts with me, we put out on the feeder about 6, and this hog beat us around every curve and all. And this was in July. The dogs gave out at 3 o'clock. They were just too hot, burnt. Yes, well, the next morning when me and this friend of mine, Mike, went in, we put out, dogs trailed out, jumped him. Well, when he made the first crossing, I didn't think anything of it. But when he made that second crossing, I told Mike, I said, this is the hog we ran yesterday. I said, come on, I know where he's going. we got around the block just in time to see him cross. We packed fresh dogs in, caught the back dogs, and we met him at every crossing. We were waiting on him.
Oh, yeah.
And that hog still ran till 2:30. Wow. And then, he died 5 minutes after we had him tied up. Yes. He was just...
That's crazy.
Too hot. But
yeah,
I think about the hogs we've run all day and never caught them.
Yes.
How far they run.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Because like I said, I'm still new to doing this and having my own pack of dogs that run hogs like that run long races. Like I said, most of mine were just silent and violent. We were snagging them quick as we could.
Right.
And we still have a lot of cur dogs. We got some cur dog with a little bit of hound in them, some crosses. But I went with a couple people last year, and we had 5-hour races in 100-degree weather, 6-7 hour races. We had one race with Logan Campbell, and it was 7 hours, and we did not catch the hog. Like it was bad. I couldn't believe it. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, that's hogs over by Logan's. I can tell you that.
Them some guns. Yeah, they run.
Same kind of hogs behind my house,
Mm-hmm.
Same terrain.
Is it?
cut over.
How far are you from where Logan lives at?
I think maybe a little bit over an hour.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, Logan's that's my buddy there. He's a fine fella. He's got some good dogs, and man, he loves to hunt. He likes having a good time. That's for sure. He's just having a good time.
Oh yeah, and he's raising that boy right. He's keeping him in the woods.
Yes, sir. That we went down there, and I think me and Delton we had a sword fight that morning. Start off out in the woods, and then we had us. Logan got stuck on a tree. I don't know how he done it. But anyway, so Delton, we got us a couple big pieces of bark. We made us some guitars, and we played the guitars out there standing on top of a broke down tree while the dogs was running.
Yeah.
That's my hat's off to Logan. That's, like I said, there's not a lot of people that run them youngins like that.
Right.
And Delton's already a little dog man.
Oh yeah.
He's a mess.
My daughters, they were pretty much raised in the woods. My grandkids.
Yes, sir.
And that buddy's grandkids are going with us. So, and I'm not getting any younger by any means, and I can't get in like I used to. So, I have to depend on, younger help. And we've got a couple of guys that hunt with us, and so we get there. We might not get there as fast. You might call us a geriatric crew.
Well, that's about where me and Rodney are at now. Nate's our young. He's my son. Nate's the younger one.
I'm 24.
He's 24, so he boots on the ground. The other day, I said, man, I was proud of myself. I was like, dang, I beat them all in here. Well, he had done doubled back, climbed the mountain.
I was running up this mountain, chasing his young female puppy, trying to get her in on the pig. Trying to get him down to the hillside.
Yeah, he was trying to. She's from Oklahoma, flatland out there. I don't know if she's ever seen a hill. It kind of freaked her out for a minute. So Nathan's running up and down this mountain, and I'm over there, and I thought I really done something. I was like, well, he could have been here an hour ago.
Yeah.
But I did make it all the way in there without dying.
Good deal.
And so that was a big plus. But all right, so I had a couple more things. So where all have you sent your dogs out to? That's what because I know you've sent them all over the place. There's a lot of people that have your dogs.
I've got them in 5 countries.
Wow.
So I've got some in Mexico being hunted on javelina, Canada, Finland, Sweden, trying to think of the name. Oh, and Spain.
Spain.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hunting in Sweden.
Yes.
A lot of dog hunting.
Yes. I've been over there 3 times. And it is pristine country. It is beautiful over there.
Really?
And, mid to north Sweden is pretty close to like a lot of the terrain in Alaska. They're on the same latitude. Mm-hmm. And but I found out things I never knew about. One about the dog hunting. Sweden kills 40% of the world's moose harvest.
What?
I couldn't. That's more than Russia, more than Canada, Alaska. Yeah, Sweden.
Never dreamed that.
And that's a fairly small country too, but it's they hunt moose like we do deer. The round blocks, and they'll run dogs through them. But they've got a couple of breeds of Pacific moose dogs they use, one dog at a time, and they want the dog to just stand back. Mm-hmm. And a moose will stay bayed if a dog's not putting pressure on them. Then the hunter can come in and, shoot him. So, but they hunt everything with dogs over there. The brown bear, that's what I've sent dogs over there for. But every trip I've been over there, I hear bear attacks. And a lot of times it's mistaken identity. They're, like this one case, the guy thought he was moose hunting, thought his dog had a moose bait, flipped in there, the wind changed, and then that bear was on top of him. And his buddy had to shoot the bear off of him. Now, I don't know if I'd be more afraid of the guy shooting the bear off of him or the bear itself, but anyway.
Yeah, that's a little tight there for me.
Yeah.
In a bind.
And those hunters over there, you're not allowed to run like sow bears with cubs. So you got to pull your dogs off. And the hunters have more to fear from the bear than the dogs do.
That's too much right there. That's pretty wild.
And you only allow 2 dogs at a time on a brown bear.
Oh man, I don't know about that.
My last trip over there, at the time, we killed the 4th largest bear ever killed in Sweden. It weighed 699 pounds.
Holy smokes, that's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, I don't know what a huge bear is. Only bears I've seen have been black bears, and I've seen some pretty good sized ones. 300, 350. A friend of ours actually killed one in. Where did Tim kill that one? Was it North Carolina or West? It was in North Carolina, and it was 645 pounds.
That's a big bear.
He killed it on the ground. Yeah, it was. This thing looked like you couldn't put another ounce of weight on it. It was round.
Feel like if you drew a black bear in a cartoon.
Yes, it was so huge. It was crazy. But like I said, that was just an anomaly there. Generally, the ones that I've ever seen are a couple hundred pounds.
I killed one up in Canada. It was 600, and the dogs made him fine.
Oh, yeah. Well, they put heat on him.
Yeah, normally those bears stay on the ground, but they put him up. I mean, he wasn't high. He was maybe 15 feet at the highest.
Mm-hmm. I could see where this bear hunting thing could ruin a man. I mean, yes.
Well, it's a lot easier on an old man because all I have to do is walk to the tree, get my dog, and normally we'll time back about 50 yards, let the bear get down and go, and then I don't hardly ever use a leash other than that. Then they follow me out.
Yes, sir. Now, with all these adventures and stuff that you went around and done, I'm assuming you took your dogs, some of your personal dogs as well.
Yes.
Correct. So, over the years, what would you say are some of the? Give us the name of maybe the top male and female of that's already done, that's dead and gone, and then the top male and female that's currently active.
Okay. I had a female named Black. Now she was a wings bred dog, top and bottom, and that's when wings meant something, So, her claim to fame, she was so fast, she'd get way ahead of the other dogs and catch the bear by herself or treat. She was the total package, super cold nose, fast and pretty, and I've had one friend say, well, she's a problem dog. I said, what do you mean? He said, she can get so far ahead of everything, the other dogs can't do anything. I said, well, I would call the other dogs the problem dogs. You need to get past the dog.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's right.
And then I had a dog named Trapper, and I actually ended up selling him to a good buddy of mine. I got hurt and couldn't work for a month.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I knew I didn't ask enough for him when he said, you got a couple more you want to sell with him?
Yeah.
But, his claim to fame, and I made a post about this not too long ago, picking out all my best dogs and the correlation between them, they had that all-day stamina. There's a lot of dogs can run hard for 3 or 4 hours, but then slow down.
Mm-hmm.
These dogs just could run top speed all day, and it's it's hard to find dogs like that, that can really keep the pressure on. And but that Trapper dog, and I had a Shamrock bred dog, Joe Hudson. I called him Red Man. Same thing.
Mm-hmm.
All 3 of these dogs needed no help. If they got on a running hog and you didn't catch, they'd be there. I mean, maybe 18 hours. They were going to run him down. It's just hard to find dogs like that. And, the Trapper dog and old Blackie female, they're in the pedigree of all my dogs probably maybe 10, 15 times. So I've line bred off those dogs.
Well, And I've heard of all those dogs as well. That's why I was kind of, wanted to see what you said were your personal best that that you've, because like I said, I've heard a lot of people talk about them over the years, and I've heard a lot about them. So that's pretty cool. There, I kind of knew those names.
Yeah, that they don't come around very often, but I've had a couple of others that I thought might be as good, but they got killed early, by the time they were 2, and so there was no way to tell. And the other thing, and this happens a lot, when a dog dies, it gets better and better. And I don't know if I'm guilty of that or not. I just know they were exceptional dogs, and it's hard to tell, the dogs have today, because you can't hunt them with the dogs of yesterday.
Yes, sir.
How to compare. But the bottom line is, you'll know if you got dogs that can keep the pressure on all day long, running that all day stamina, they're good dogs. I've had a lot of dogs that were just as cold nosed, just as gritty, but they might not have had quite that all day stamina the way they had. And
so that's one of the main things that you're looking for. Like if you're going to make a breeding, the all day stamina, that's going to be a big factor. And then, being able to stay hooked by itself. So when you do make these breedings, other than those things right there, what are you looking for when you're putting together a good breeding?
Well, I want nose above everything. If a dog can't trail it out and get him jumped or whatever, you're not going to run him or bait. It's so I like nose, and I'm not talking about these dogs that boo-hoo, on a track, not go anywhere. My dogs, they drift the track. They're out there. If they can't work it out, they're drifting out farther to pick it up. And they all run heads up pretty much. It's once it's jumped. But I like nose. I like the right amount of grit. I like a good mouth on a dog. So, but I like them to bark too. I want them barking on track. That.
I was thinking, say, how that discussion goes right there in the hog dog world.
Right.
That's not for everybody, but there's a lot of people, and I've noticed it seems like it's predominantly people that are running super rough dogs or running catch dogs, and they're in the pigs, and that's the only way they catch them.
Yeah.
And they're like, man, if the dog barks one time, those pigs are out of the country. And yes, there's a lot of places like that. So how much does that affect, or have you seen it affect anything as far as the pigs not wanting to, or not being able to find hogs? Let's put it like that. If the dog barks on track, if you find the hog, at the end of the day, you're going to bait him.
Well, sometimes.
Well, I know that, but that's what I'm saying. Does it affect it to where you're not going to bait the hog if the dogs bark on track?
No, not really. Like I said, if I put one dog out, and this might not be an exact percentage, but I'd say it's 75% bays if I put one dog out. And we've seen it so much, those dogs opening all the way to the bay, and boom, they're bayed, To me, it's the amount of dogs. These hogs around here, they're not going to take a lot of pressure. You got 2-4 dogs out, that hog's going to break and run every time. And if you're in thick cover, they're not going to have a chance to grab him.
Yes.
So, and once he's gone, you just got to wear him out. And a lot of times it's the hog that's going to determine if he wants to stop or not. It's, they're going to stop where they're comfortable. Normally that's going to be a thicket.
Yes.
So, and if you've got a ton of hogs, and I've hunted places where there were just hogs everywhere, you don't really need a hound. Good cur dog can make a hound look stupid if you got a lot of hog numbers.
Yes, sir.
So it's all a matter of personal preference.
Okay. Well, I think a lot of it is because used to I was the same way to an extent. I was like, well, we didn't run any dogs that barked on track because, well, for a long time, I mean, the hogs would take a bay. We didn't have to have long races, but we were. I'm going to say like where I live at, when I first started, it was kind of virgin country. Like there were no other hog hunters. There was literally just a handful within 4 or 5 counties. And we all knew each other, and most of us hunted together. So if I got a new property, I'd call all the guys, we'd go over there and hunt it that weekend. Then the next guy, he'd get a property. We'd all rotate like that. And we get there, if we got a hog up at 200 yards, usually by 400 or 500 yards, we had him stopped.
Yeah.
And then there was a shift. Everything started changing. And then also a lot of our properties got smaller.
Right.
So I needed something fast and real rough.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever heard of Taylor Crockett.
Yes, sir.
He was a old time. He was the last of the big five, they called him. It was Von Plott, another Plott, Isaac Kidd, Taylor Crockett. They were part of the big five in spot hound history. Mm-hmm. Well, him and Archie Boone came over for a weekend to hunt with me. And I asked him, I said, do y'all want to catch hogs or do you want to run hogs? And Taylor said, what do you mean? I said, if you want to catch hogs, we'll turn this one little black cur dog jip out by herself. And he was like a machine. She'd bay. Taylor said, well, I brought dogs to run. So we ran hogs for 2 days straight, never caught a hog.
And the older I get, the more I like that. I really do. I enjoy it. I got a running walker down there right now, foxhound, whatever you want to call him. He's registered through all of it. And he opens up. He's not wide open, but he barks a good bit, but he's fast. And, and he can put it, he can make it happen.
Yeah. What kind of speed are y'all averaging over there?
On him, and I just started hunting him this past year. Well, actually, Logan Campbell's was the first time I'd ever hunted him. And now it was pretty thick. He stayed in the pack with Logan's dogs the whole time he was there. And that was the first time he'd ever been turned out with me. And he had never been on hogs. They had him in the fox pen. Well, we carried him to Arkansas, and he stayed at 17, 18 miles an hour. But that's also open woods and river bottom. There were some cutovers, and he would slow down to about 7, 8 miles an hour.
Yeah.
When he got to the thick stuff. And I did my math on it, and as I would say that whole race that he had there, it was about 8 miles total, and he probably averaged about 8 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Just to put it in perspective, but he had a lot of open area he could run.
Yeah.
I got a new property we're hunting down here, not far from the house, and it's thick. It's all cutovers. There's nothing open about it, and it's all up and down hill. And I want to take him and turn him loose down there. I turned him loose one day, but we didn't stay long we wasn't there long enough to even get a race going. And but I want to take him down there and see what he can do in hard terrain. Because I think any dog with some legs on him could do double-digit speed for a couple of hours in open woods and open country.
Yeah.
I want to see what he does in where I hunt at.
Right.
That's where I live at. It's all thick, nasty, cut over. It's about like some of that stuff where we were down there with Logan's, except our hills are a lot bigger.
The ridges, a lot of the ridges, they can actually cut them and clear cut them and replant them. But a lot of the stuff after it gets over 40% grade, they're not going to hand fell it, and they just leave it. Yeah. And a lot of it, they have like streamside management zones, basically, because it's like a perennial stream or something that flows through there like once a month. So they got to cut a bunch of hardwood strips through it. And usually where the big timber is, it's really rough.
Yeah, it's bad country. A lot of bluffs, a lot of terrain changes. anywhere from 100 feet at a time, or elevation changes from 100 feet to 400 or 500 foot. It's not big mountains, but it's enough to cause a problem.
It's just a lot of ridges instead of having like when we went over with Andy and Jacob. It's like we're climbing up we're climbing up the same mountain, and we know, okay, in an hour we're going to be at the top of this mountain.
Yeah.
Well, we're here in 1 hour. We would have climbed 10 mountains. Now they ain't an eighth of the size, but we didn't have to go back up and down.
It seems like it's worse in the aspect of going to the bigger mountains, because like Nate said, we can just continuously climb up. Over here, we got to go up, down, then up, then down. I think going down's, I fall a lot and slide. So, I mean, I'm old and fat, so I'm going to do it as long as I can anyway. But I want to see what the dog can do in that kind of country instead of just the easy peasy deal,
Yeah, one thing I found out over the years, because I've hunted the mountains a good bit.
Yes, sir.
But dogs' condition in the mountains are far superior to dogs' condition anywhere else, like the flatlands. Ever.
Yes, sir.
They just have such good cardio. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, but that's the way most of ours do. Like if we go somewhere else and hunt, they usually hang in there, no problem, or whatever. Like we don't have any issues because we still got a lot of humidity, a lot of heat, and we run all summer long. So generally, if we get to travel some, the dogs they perform pretty good.
And, Logan and I had this conversation a couple of years ago at Uncle Earl's. To me, because, we experimented with it way back in the day, but the fastest thing out there in the woods is a half running walker, half cur dog cross. Mm-hmm. And, I've had people come with running walkers. They pretty much run right with our dogs. But there's cur dogs out there or cur dog running walker crosses. They can just get ahead. They've just got that top end speed that, fly basically.
Yes, sir. And we've got 3 young dogs right now, fixing to get them started any time right now within the next 2 months, and they are 3/4 cur and 1/4 July.
Yeah,
and those should do pretty well. I'm hoping.
Yeah, I think so, because it's the cur dogs where the speed is coming from. Mm-hmm. Those run put the stamina in them and all, but it's the cur dogs I used to have. They could get ahead of the hounds pretty easy, but if those hounds could just stay in there for that first hour or so, then they'd be coming on. Then
Yes, sir. We put a couple of cur dogs in a race down there. Well, we done it at Logan's as well, and I think. Which Sally was an older dog, but she stayed in there for about 3.5, 4 hours. And that was, that we were very impressed with that part. It was like, wow, she did good. And
yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. And then midnight, we were out in Georgia, in South Georgia with Henry Williams, and she stayed in there for about the same length of time. But now, like an hour later, we had that hog stop, but like she was wore out. But she stayed in there and hung tough. And for a cur dog, I was like, well, I'm happy with that because she's full-blooded cur dogs,
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, they get so caught up in the running walker thing that they really think that is the fastest dog. And like we was talking to Pat Lewing, and Pat was, that's what he said. He said, there ain't nothing going to outrun that cur dog for a short distance, They're going to put the speed in it, but they got to maintain it.
Yeah.
What kind of speed do you think it takes to catch a good boar hog that wants to stay out there and run? What kind of speed do you think?
I don't know, because it varies with the terrain.
Yes, sir.
But the more speed you have, the better your chance.
No doubt. Ain't no doubt.
I've been out running enough where, I don't think I'm qualified to answer that, but now we caught a boar back here behind the house, and these hogs get pressured a lot, either by deer dogs, other hog hunters. But we found this track. I guess about 10 o'clock in the morning, maybe 10:30, and we put on. They trailed out jumping. whatever reason, that hog left the cutover and hit open woods. And the dog's gassing. We saw him cross the road twice. And that one section, you know how his mouth was wide open. You could see him sucking air.
Yes.
And in 20 minutes, they had him called. I say called, they were catching him when we got up there.
Man.
But, and he was a good rushing hog. But he was fat, too. He had been eating deer corn all season. That probably had a lot to do with it. But if he would have stayed in the cutover, you know.
It could have been a different story, huh?
Now, we run a hog, I think it was last year, my Hank dog. I had a couple of dogs we put out to give them a chance, and they trailed out, went about 300 yards, started just making loops. And I knew they were in hog routings, you know, but they just couldn't figure it out. I sent that Hank dog in there. He went right through them, never bobbled, and he crossed the road about 800 yards. Well, we went there. He had the track. Well, the other dogs had figured it out, were coming in behind him. Hank went another quarter mile and jumped. Well, I reset the, you know, my unit on him. We caught the back dog. That dog ran that hog 10 3/4 miles before we called up, because we had to get outside the club. I said he was running right on the edge, and we were afraid he was going to cross the highway. Well, finally cut back into the club. We had to go around, play catch up. So he had already run that hog 10 3/4 miles, and we got there just in time to see him cross. We went and put 2 fresh dogs in, and they had him caught. And I say caught, they had him paid maybe half a mile. But that Hank dog, if I remember right, was averaging 8.5 miles an hour for those 2 hours, whatever. So,
that's pretty good.
Well, that's in cutover too.
Yes, sir. That's what I'm saying for that terrain. I think that's good. I know some guys, you know, they want double digit speed, you know, all day, but at the same time, I look at those things as well. Like, you know, well, what are they running in? I mean, if it's cutover all day long and they're running 13 to 15 miles an hour, man, that dude is moving. Yeah,
you're not kidding. Yeah, I would say you got dogs that can hold 13, 15 miles an hour. You're going to break most hogs down in, I'd say, 2 to 3 hours, yes, I would think.
That's what I would think too. Like, you know, especially if you got the temperatures right, you know, you get some heat, you're probably going to break them down pretty quick.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't know. My dogs kind of suck. They ain't that good. we tear them shoats up though.
I hear you. Now, dog can go from hero to zero in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yes. We got an old cur dog that does that all the time. Oh, Sally. She will go in there and she will bay a 300-pound boar hog, good teeth, you know, and just show out, man, make it like you ain't never seen. And then the next 5 hunts, she's going to get deep and she's going to bay a 5-pound piglet and just sit there and play with him and bay him and bay him and bay him.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And she'll do that 3 or 4 or 5 times. And you're like, what are you doing? And then the next time, you know, when you get frustrated enough, you don't want to hunt her. That's when she'll pull one out of the hat and just, you know, which a lot of that's just free casting. We just turn them loose on the trail, let them go in there. And now we've then got more refined and we're turning out on track, you know, a certain track. And we're trying to get a little more in depth like that, like some of the real hog hunters do.
Well, I don't know about that, but we like it, you know.
I've seen if you're gonna catch that.
Yeah.
Oh man! Now there's do you know Cody Godwin?
I know the name.
Okay,
now, I think
Cody's from lives in Florida, but he hunts in deep South Georgia. We went hunting with him. He's got some plots, and he bear hunts and hog hunts, and he's got some fine dogs.
Yeah,
and they push in a lot of. It's not cutovers. It's just, well, I guess it is like old clear cuts, but it's all flooded.
Yeah.
And it's them old gallberry bushes. It's thick, nasty stuff, man. I'm telling you. And when they get on one, that's all the speed that they can produce is what you got to have down there. You got to run them out because they get out in a spot you can't get to them. It's horrible country. A lot of it's kind of flat and you can see for a long ways, but everything in there is head high. And you're kind of up on a small levee, the roads are all built up high. Oh, it's a mess.
Yeah, I've hunted Florida and South Georgia a good bit. I was actually
okay. You know what it is.
Raised in Florida. I didn't move to Louisiana till I was 13 when my dad got transferred. But
okay,
to give you an idea about the thick part you're talking about, I used to hunt Florida when Florida had a bear season. And you'd have to cut your way into the tree.
Yes.
And I tell you what, we cut and chopped for about 20 minutes. Stopped to take a drink of Mountain Dew, which is what we carried. They didn't have bottled water back then. And we could still hear people talking at the truck.
Oh, my goodness.
And not only is it thick like that, but a lot of it is wet, like you're talking about.
We were in a place called Fargo.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's where Cody's place is. And we went down there and had a bear tree that one morning. Some guys they're all on the same lease. And we got there and those guys had those little handheld chainsaws.
Yeah.
And I mean, like they're literally the size of a reciprocating saw or a little sawzall or something. And they cut trails in there so we could come in there and see the bear. And I'm telling you, it was still thick. So my hat's off to them guys. The dogs have to run in that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Oh, quit.
Yeah, I was at Jamestown Hunting Club, which is on the west side of the swamp.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got all the clubs that surround the swamp they're real unique because they might kill all the bears, on those 3 weekends that the season's open. But then 2 weeks later, the deer hunters are complaining, y'all aren't killing enough bears. They're eating our deer corn. Yeah. There's an endless supply of bear that come out of that swamp. So it's a good place to run. But like during the summer and training season, you get bears bait up in there and you got to go in and pull your dogs off and all that. It's hot, sweaty work is what it is.
Yes. Yeah, I can definitely see that being, being tough all the time, because they hunted all the time. We just went as guests and went and hung out, and it was tough. Well, I think we crawled into one bay, and it was about, I think it was 100 yards. It wasn't much, it wasn't far.
No.
But it seemed like it took forever to get in. And literally, we were crawling. That's the only way to get in there because we didn't have nothing to cut our way in that night. And it was crawling in water.
Yeah.
It'll definitely make you tough.
I tell you what, Wisconsin has spoiled me.
Oh, yeah?
Canada was always the easiest place we'd ever bear hunted. We were hunting islands up there. And we wouldn't pick big islands. We'd pick islands might be a mile long, but half a mile wide. So the farthest you had to walk was only a quarter mile. But a lot of those bears like to tree pretty close to the water. So we've actually shot a couple of bears that would have had the boat parked under them, would have landed in the boat. But it was pretty open woods. And Wisconsin's pretty much like that. They've got small blocks. They've got a couple of sections. If you get in a place that's been logged over, that can get pretty thick. But by the time August rolls around, I've had it with the summers down here. I'm ready to hit cooler weather. And I'll go up there. It could be 40, 45 degrees in the morning, warm up to 70. And I know I've been up there too long when 80 degrees starts to feel hot.
Yeah. Yeah, because, 80 degrees here, that's that's still cool weather there.
Yeah.
So when you go up to Wisconsin up there, is that all you hunt predominantly is just bear?
Yeah, just bear.
Just bear. I got you.
So sometimes those younger dogs hunt other things, but we won't talk about that.
Now, hey, look, let's talk a little bit about maybe not just your dog doing that, but how important do you feel that it is to let a young dog be a young dog, and just let them run, or is it more important for you to break them off stuff right off the bat?
All right. I'll tell you how I raise my puppies, and I've been very blessed where I live because I can let my puppies run loose.
Yes, sir.
They start off on squirrels, rabbits, and all, but by the time they're 5 months old or so, they've graduated to deer. Mm-hmm. So I have to pin them up then, but anyway, the bottom line is by the time they're 5 months old, they know how to run a track. They've been using their nose 24/7. And I could sit out there in the evening and listen to puppies trying to cold trail a rabbit and get him jumped. Mm-hmm. If a dog can cold trail a rabbit and get him jumped, he's got a nose. And not all of mine have done that, but that's kind of what I breed for.
I got you.
Well, then I'll start them in my pen. I keep one hog in there, and it'll be 50 to 100 pounds, and I want a running hog. I don't want anything that'll bay up.
Yes.
And I'll put them in there, and, they start running the hog. By then I've got a handle on them. I'll work them on like a 75-foot ski rope, teaching them to come in when I tone them and all that. And, but I only let them run that hog for maybe an hour. I don't want them to catch them. I don't want them to run them down. Mm-hmm. Then I'll start catching them out. Sometimes I have to get a little bit rough, but they learn when I tone them, I mean business,
Yes, sir.
So a lot of people say, oh, man, you can't tone or even shot those puppies off a hog. You can.
Yes, you can.
I mean, I have done it once. I have them on the long line. They know what I want, so if they keep going, they're deliberately ignoring me. So, mm-hmm. I do what it takes to bring them in. So I'll run them in that pen, and I don't overdo it. Maybe once, twice a week is plenty.
Yes, sir.
But by the time I start taking them to the woods at, 8 or 9 months, they know what the ball game's all about. I can put them in hog sign. Those puppies are going to trail it up. If possible, they're going to put an effort in. And so, still at that young, I'm still trying to pick their battles. Like if we get into sows and shoats, I'm turning the puppies out. Yes. If we're on a big boar, I'm not going to put them out. Yes. They've got to be, I think, mentally mature enough, to do it. But that's just me because everybody's different.
I have to agree on that part. And I feel like sometimes I've held dogs back by trying to make sure they were mentally mature enough. I'm sure they could have handled it and been capable of doing it. But at the same time, just because a 13-year-old boy can fight and wants to fight doesn't mean that he's ready for the UFC.
That's exactly right.
So I tend to take a lot longer than most people do. But also at the same time, and this is not tooting my horn by no means at all. We've been very blessed to be able to take pups to the woods, just like you're talking about. And usually that first hunt, they know what to do. By the second or third time, I mean, they're not hog dogs by no means, but they know what to do.
Yeah. See, that's why I run Plotts, because they're so hard-headed. I ruin most dogs because I'm pretty heavy-handed, but yes. I need a hard-headed dog to work with.
Oh, I understand. We've got a few of those. I've had some that were real easy, and like you said, I sometimes I think those hard-headed ones, they just turn out to be better for us.
Yeah.
So with all the Plotts that you've had over the years, what's your ratio been like as far as like raising puppies, the healthcare part of it, I guess is what I'm saying. You got any tips to give our listeners on like whelping puppies and getting puppies up to 4 or 5 months old, make sure they stay healthy?
Well, and I just had this happen. At 6 weeks old, I give them a 5-1. 3 weeks later, I give them another 5-1. 3 weeks later, I give them a 9-1. And I do everything on a 3-week schedule.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what my vet recommended to me. We made a cross. And again, I'm not mentioning any names, but I had one of my females AI to the trapper dog. We got 7 puppies out of that litter. Well, I sold 2 of them, and the guy calls me up and says, those 2 puppies I got died of parvo. And I said, did you vaccinate them? Well, at that age, when he told me that, they should have been vaccinated twice already.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all the other puppies are doing fine. They've been on that same schedule I was on. But anyway, I told him I'd give him, you know, another pup. And but I'm a firm believer, you know, do not skip a vaccination. You vaccinate them when they're due.
Yes, sir.
So it's that, and I keep them on a pretty regular worming schedule. And I've had some cases, man, I've had trouble with hookworms.
Yes.
And my vet told me to double the dose, and then he said, mix. Well, I'm not going to give that advice over there. I don't want to be liable. But
yes, sir. I know what you're saying.
You know,
yeah,
but
we do the same thing. It's like you got to be like, hey, I can't tell everybody how to do it, you know, or what to do, because then if something happens, then they're like, well, I heard it, and Mike Cauley said it.
Yeah, I know. It's so my best advice: if you've got questions, ask a vet.
Yeah. There you go. That's really, because that's like I said, we have to do the same thing. Kind of a disclaimer, like there's certain things that we will, you know, tell people what we do, but I make sure I'm like, we are not veterinarians. We don't recommend doing any of this. This is just what we do, and it works for us.
Right.
You know, but still, even at that rate, if something ever goes wrong, you'll never hear the end of it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
But yeah, we've had, I don't know if it's just from being in the Southeast or the Deep South, but like we've had issues with hookworms.
Yeah.
Over the years. We've used all types of wormer. I mean, everything.
Yeah, that told me, and it makes sense but he says hookworms are really getting resistant to the worm medicine that we've been using.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so.
Oh, I agree. We just did some while ago, and that's what Nate and I were talking, and we looked up some more dosages and stuff, and I was like, well, man, honestly, I hadn't been giving them enough. You know, we need to pump it to them. Yeah. And he carried one of our dogs to the vet the other day and still had hookworm, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this thing is on our worming schedule is like, when I say it's above and beyond, it is. And he still had hookworms. Like, you know, he wasn't just like ate up with them, but like still had them.
Yeah.
So it's one of those deals where everything does build up a resistance.
Yeah.
So do you think that we've seen the best Plott hounds out there so far in this world, or do you think they're still yet to come?
Well, I tell you what, back in the old days, you would hear of a really good Plott and all that, but because of distance, communications, and all that, it was, you know, hard to get dogs to breed to that dog or whatever. Now with the internet, you can find all the good dogs. Mm-hmm. I think there's more good dogs or more good Plotts nowadays than there ever was. And because you know where to go to get them.
Yes, sir. There's a broader network, it seems, you know. Right. And there's a pretty big following of, you know, well, I ain't gonna say pretty big. There is a big following of the Plott hound breed. Yeah. Even with people that don't necessarily run the Plott hounds, they pay attention to them, you know, and they kind of stay up to date on them, or they're very interested in them. You know, one of those kind of deals. I don't know. I think it's a pretty cool breed. Not the history of it is definitely that's the part of it that really draws me into it, is the history, and guys like yourself that have, you know, that have continued on breeding substantial dogs and continually doing that and maintaining them. And that's what it's got. That's what it takes.
Yeah, it's a lot of dedication, and I got a lot, our friends are my hunting buddies. I keep them well supplied with dogs because it's hard to do it all by yourself. And I've got too many dogs. I keep saying I need to cut back. I probably have 20 head out there, a couple of bulldogs, but it takes that many. And I find myself leaving trained dogs at home just to work young dogs. But twice I've come close to running out of dogs. I had 4 killed in February one year. I've had them overheated and dying in the summer. And after that second time, I said I'd never go through that again. I'm going to keep enough to keep me going. And
yes, sir.
now I'm at the point where, hey, buddy, you better slow down a little bit. You're not getting any younger.
Yeah, that feed bill doesn't get any cheaper.
Right. And I keep saying, man, I don't need this many dogs. But, I still love to hear them run as much as I did when I was 20.
Yes,
I still love to hear a bay going on and getting in there. I can't get in there as quick, but once in a while I get lucky.
Yes. So how old are you, Mr. Mike?
69.
69. I got you. Yeah, you're getting on the upper end of it, ain't you?
Yeah.
Probably still outrun a bunch of these young guys, I bet.
No, I run over. I've had too many horse wrecks, I'm pretty beat up.
Yes, sir. I got you. Well, I mean, I think it's good to see, you still being so much in love with it. It's something that you want to do. It's something that's in you. It can't be replicated. There's no other thing like that. I feel the same way. I hope I'm still able to go when I'm your age, and that ain't going to be too much further off. But at the same time, it's like, I hope I never lose the passion for it.
That's exactly right. And you see, I know you've seen it a lot. These people think, oh man, this hog hunt's so cool. I'm getting in. They're in and out for 3 years, and
yes.
That's but pretty much the diehards, they love it, and if they're not hog hunting, they'll be hunting something with a dog.
Yes, that's a fact.
And me, I could care less about deer hunting. I'll shoot a deer or 2 every year, but I use that to break the dogs. I'll bring those dogs up to the kennel.
Yes.
I'll tie a short leash around them. I'll chain those young dogs to that deer, and I'll start pushing them. And it's a couple of times of that, those puppies won't ever run a deer.
Yeah, they ain't gonna mess with it, huh?
So that's been by far the easiest way I've had of breaking dogs off deer, because you know how it is. You can see deer, you take those dogs, turn them out, burn them a couple of times. A lot of them won't leave your feet.
Yes.
After that, they're afraid of getting burned. But
yeah, that electricity is it's a very touchy deal for sure, and knowing how to use it and when to use it, that's the biggest thing.
Well, I like using it under controlled situation.
Yes. I think that's a good deal there. Like you said, if it works for you and it's worked this long, well, hell, it works.
Yeah, it's and it's not foolproof, but it sure helps. So
I got a question here from, it's Ryan Rankin. He's with Boars N Broads, and he's asked me this question, and he's been on our podcast a few different times, and he always seems to ask this question: if you could hunt with anyone from the past, who would it be and why?
Boy, you should have given me some advance notice.
I know. Well, that's what I'm saying. Just think about that for a minute. We'll talk about something else. The heat part we were talking about on how do the Plotts do as far as the heat, the resistance? How good can they take the heat?
To me, they don't take it real well. I, you know, 3 of the best dogs I've got out there right now, I've heat stroked them 3 or 4 times, and they just can't run in the summer now. You'll hear them come; they'll be wheezing real bad. But that's my fault, and the main reason is they won't quit. They'll just keep, pushing themselves beyond their limit.
I got you.
So that's but that, to me, that's any hound. I think cur dogs are smart enough to quit.
Yeah, I do. Generally, I think most or the biggest majority of cur dogs would just say, "Hey, I'm tired. Come back to the buggy or the truck or whatever, or just lay down in the mud hole, something." Don't know many cur dogs that just run themselves. Not full blooded cur dogs that just run themselves till they just can't. I've seen a few that I thought would, but I've never put them to that either.
Yeah, I've got started like in the summers. If we got to have a wet summer, we can run. But if it's a dry summer, I'm just not going to run them. Or if I'm running them as early in the morning, and I'm toning them in, by maybe 9 o'clock.
Yes, sir. And tell some of the listeners out there that, because we've got, it kind of caught me off guard when we first started doing this, but there's so many people that have no hunting background, don't come from hunting families or anything, and they have gotten into running hog dogs. So give them a clue as to what to look for, how to tell if that dog's heat stroking or starting heat stroke or getting too hot.
Well, you can pretty much tell if they come out staggering and all. They're hot. You can carry ringers with you to get some fluid back in them. And we've had. I heard. I don't know if it's on y'all's podcast or not, but we use the old time method of taking them to the creek as fast as we can. Yep. While that might not be the most ideal or best situation, it saved my dogs. They would have died. Yes. No doubt about it.
Yes, it's saved ours before too. Just getting them to cool off however you can.
Yeah.
So that there's a lot of questions we get asked and stuff like that. But I try to get info from everybody if I can.
Right.
Sometimes the podcast goes sideways and we just start talking about nothing.
Yeah. A little bit of alcohol with you and rub it on their belly, and that'll cool off a certain portion. But even if you have to inject water underneath the skin, that's better than nothing. That will help cool them off. It'll help hydrate them. But, most of the dogs are so hot, they can't even drink. They pretty well have lost just about all coordination or whatever. And it's just letting them soak in the creek till they cool off, so.
Yes, sir. So what kind of good, tell us a couple of good hunting stories.
How much time have you got?
You got hey, the floor is yours.
Okay.
As long as you want to talk, I'll shut up.
This is my favorite hunting story. Me and my buddy Charlie, which we've hunted together 40 years, and we picked a day to go hunting in the Bogachita this was before it was a management area, and we used to go out there. Anyway, I met him out there. He grew up out there in those woods. He lives in Pearl River. We went out there, and we couldn't have picked a worse day. It was so foggy, and we were in a boat. We couldn't even see the banks, but we kind of felt our way along. Didn't get to where we wanted, but we put in, and I had just got telemetry tracking collars. I think this is maybe around 84. So we go out, we caught a hog, tied it up, dropped the collar by it, went on. Well, we caught 3, and we sent this kid back to get the boat because we thought we were way upriver. Well, we waited an hour. Charlie says, that kid's lost. He said, come on, let's go to the boat. So we took off. And like I said, it was still so foggy, you couldn't hardly see, even though it was daylight. Well, we walked probably an hour or so. I said, Charlie, we're walking in a circle. He said, what do you mean? there's our tracks where we crossed that slough. So we took off in a different direction. Now, this island we're hunting on is maybe a mile or so at the widest, but it's maybe 7 miles long. Well, son, let me tell you, we walked and we walked, and we finally hit the river. And so Charlie, he plops down and starts drinking out the river. I said, "Are you crazy? You're going to die." I said, "You're going to get hepatitis." Now, when I say Charlie's a country boy, he's a country boy.
Yes.
He says, "I've drank out this river all my life. It's never hurt me. Come down and get you some." I said, "No, I'm going to pass." So then he sits up. He pulls off a boot. He throws it in the river. I said, "What are you doing? We got to walk out of here." He says, "Anything that hurts my feet this bad, I'll never wear again." And he throws the other boot in the river.
Damn. Oh, hell.
He says, "I'm going to wait right here. I'm not taking another step. There'll be a boat along before too long." And sure enough, about 20 minutes later, his dad comes by in a boat looking for us.
Really?
So we got the boat. We came back the next day and got the hogs.
Oh. If something hurt that bad, he didn't want no part of it.
No, he didn't.
That's pretty good there.
But I do have a good cur dog story for you.
Yes, sir.
What's the longest you've ever had your dog stay bait?
Cur dogs, Lord, 3 hours. I think midnight.
Well,
maybe a couple. No, let's see how long. No, she ran it that day. She was over there bait. I don't know. She was bait for an hour or so before we got to her.
Yeah.
So it was 3 hours total, but she actually was bait for about an hour.
Yeah. Well, me and Jimmy Jones, he's from Pearl River, and we went and hunted that same island one day.
Mm-hmm.
We caught, I think by 9 o'clock, we caught 3 big sows, about 175 each, and 3 shoats, about 30 pounds each. And so me and Jimmy are carrying the shoats back to the boat. And he says, "I'm going to go get a 3-wheeler. We'll get those sows out of here." And my dogs had rolled out again. So I had 2 cur dogs. And anyway, I was sitting there, we had telemetry, and I was getting them in one spot, and they were in deep. I was barely getting a beep on them. So I waited for 2 hours. Jimmy comes back with his brother and 3 wheelbarrows. I said, "Jim, let's go turn those sows loose. We don't need them that bad." He says, No, we don't hunt in here that much. We need to bring them out. You have to, I call it that Pearl River mentality. Mm-hmm. Those boys can't stand to turn a hog loose. They act like they're hungry all the time.
Yeah.
So anyway, we did. We went in there. We wheelbarrowed those sows out of there. And by then, it was about 5 o'clock. And, in the wintertime, it's dark at 5:30. Yes. So I took my last read. They were in the same place. Well, I thought they must have been in the camp or something, but I didn't know of any camps up, in the middle of that island. So anyway, we're planning on coming hunt the next morning. I knew they'd be back at where we launched the boat the next morning. We come back, and we had a pretty good crowd with us. We had about 8 or 9 people. So Jimmy wanted to go hunt this sand boar where this guy saw, a herd of hogs on it the evening before. And I went back to where we had parked. The dogs weren't there. I took a read. Man, they were in the same place. So I went back around, got Jimmy. We got maybe a little bit closer, and we started hunting our way into them. Well, we got maybe halfway in. We got into some hogs, caught 3 or 4. And I told Jimmy, I said, "Hush those dogs up. I think I hear dogs barking." By then, it was maybe 11 o'clock in the morning, and we could barely hear dogs baying. And I put my telemetry up and said, "Yeah, that's them." So we went on in. it was them. They had chewed the ears off another big sow, and then they couldn't really hold her, so they just sat there and bait.
Just bait her.
So, we called her. I mean, we had to kill her because she was pretty chewed up.
Yes, sir.
So, and you would think those dogs would be worn out. Man, they rolled out of there again.
Rolling again.
And probably a quarter mile, we heard them bait. And look, well, as soon as we heard them bark, this sounder was rattling so loud we couldn't hear the dogs.
Oh, Lord.
So we went to them. I bet they had at least 30 hogs.
Mm-hmm.
And me and this friend of mine, Todd Dempster, we were sending bulldogs in, catching hogs. We were turning them loose as fast as we were catching them. I told Jimmy, saying, "No, don't turn them loose. Don't turn them loose." I said, "Jimmy, more hogs caught than we can carry out of here." He said, "Oh, we'll get them out." I bet we caught 15, 17 hogs just out of that sounder. And anyway, we got the hands on those 2 cur dogs, and we were done. We were whipped.
I bet.
And so anyway, those dogs, when they rolled out, they had rolled out at 10 o'clock in the morning after we'd caught those 3 sows and shoats, and it was 11 o'clock before we got into them.
Mm.
So that was 25 hours.
God,
Which, anyway, I'm getting to the funny part. I was telling my buddy Joe Hudson from Michigan that story, and he says, "Yeah, that's a good story." Well, I could tell he didn't believe me, so I didn't say anything. But he come down and made a hunt, and Jimmy Jones, Tommy Jones, and they were all there, the guys that were in on that hunt.
Yeah.
So, anyway, but they verified the story.
Yeah. You had to bring it up just to make sure.
Yeah, that's it exactly. Because I knew he never did believe me on that, but
we generally
kind of hurt my feelings.
No, go ahead.
I said no. It kind of hurt my feelings because I knew he didn't believe me.
Yeah.
But anyway,
well, that's a long time. I mean, no matter what, it don't matter what kind of dog it is.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt. I've had dogs that would. They probably stay as long as I let them, and generally we don't have a big population of pigs. And so a lot of times, I mean, our day, 1 or 2 hogs. And I mean, if we kill 4 or 5 or catch 4 or 5, whatever, that's a big day.
Yeah.
I mean, a big day. And there's certain places now that we go, the population has increased enough now. We can have some double digit days, and I'm telling you, they're few and far between. But so we don't know how long they would do. I don't think none of mine would be for 25 hours, by no means.
Well, most times you can always get to the dogs.
Yes, sir.
Well before that time, but since it was about to get dark, we decided to leave them. But I always did think that was pretty impressive. So
yeah. That is very impressive.
Yeah.
Did you figure out who you would hunt with from the past yet?
I have.
All right, let's see.
I don't have a name, but any of those PH guides in Africa or South America that hunted either jaguar or leopard with
that's a good one.
Like Dale Lee,
yes,
him and his outfit, or some of those guys from Africa. To me, that would just be the biggest rush.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah. Them jaguars. Dale Lee says it. I listen to Dale Lee about every day on something, or read about him, or something about him. What was it? 4 brothers, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was Clell Lee, Dale Lee, the others. And I've read the books and all, but I haven't even listened to any podcasts on them.
Well, there's what is it? Born 100 years too late, or interview stories and such.
Yeah, Brett Vaughn.
Yeah, Brett's got the Dale Lee tapes that you can listen to on YouTube.
Okay.
And there's the guy that wrote a Bobcat Dog, Dave Pigtool.
Yeah.
I think he might have some stuff on there about Dale Lee as well.
Yeah,
'Cause it's like,
he does.
or if it's not Dale Lee, it's about hunting jaguars and leopards or
that's
something.
going to say
I was listening
there
to
was
it a couple
he
weeks
had
ago.
one about another jaguar or leopard hunter.
Yeah.
There's several different ones. I found one the other day and I showed Nate. I was like, you got to watch this. It was two guys that were roping bears in 1934. And it was the actual footage. It was Mutual of Omaha, I think is what it was. It was old Mutual of Omaha is what I want to say. The production company was, and it was black and white. And those dudes were, I mean, I ain't never seen nothing like it in my life.
The end cut scene is them with a chain gang, and they got two bears, and they got these big metal collars on, and
Yeah.
like the hounds are just following them behind on the horses, and
Bears are walking in line.
yeah, they got them stringing them along. They're gonna bring them home. I was like,
that was the wildest stuff I've ever seen.
Yeah. I tell you a story I read about one of the old Plott books, but they had an African lion that got loose. And these two Plott guys put their dogs on it, roped the lion, tied him up, and put him in the trunk of a car and took him back.
Oh, Lord.
Now,
Them boys had some brass with them, didn't they?
yeah.
My goodness. Yeah, that would be, I mean, I've heard of, like the bunch of guys out west and southwest roping mountain lions, but, African lion.
that's a big animal.
That's a big animal.
Yeah. That's a big animal.
My thing is like, once they get it roped, I mean, how you tie his feet up?
Well,
Very
they
careful.
probably rope both ends and stretch him out before they start tying him.
That'd be the only way,
That's how they did on the black bear.
Yeah.
They hitch him off to the horse, and the horses would hold him tight, and they take a smaller rope, and they was going down there, and they was lassoing his paws and tying him off.
The kicker to that whole thing is those guys roped that bear in the tree.
Yeah, that was the impression.
Yeah.
They had and healed him in the tree. I was like, oh my goodness. Like, that's some skill just in itself, just the roping part.
Yeah, that's right.
I would have been back there videoing and be like, y'all doing a good job, fellas. Y'all doing good. I've been hiding behind a damn rock. Oh, man. Well, Mr. Mike, what kind of plans you got for the future? Where are you headed to with the dogs?
Well, I'm getting ready to head up to Plott days. Let's say Wednesday morning, me and a buddy of mine's going up there. Spending a few days, but I'm going to keep plugging along with the dogs. I didn't give you the names of some of my better dogs that I've got out there now.
Yeah.
But I've got that Hank dog. Even though he's 9 years old, he's still at the head of the pack. And that Showtime dog I've got, he's pretty much the real deal. You can take him anywhere. Neither of those dogs will embarrass you. They might not be the best out there, but they'll put an effort in.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's I've got a female out there I call Cypher. She's pretty good cold trailing gyp. She's fast, and she those are. And I got another female named Showgirl that's pretty nice dog. But all of them, they just don't need any help. So, and that's pretty much what I breed for. And another thing about breeding, I see so many people, and you mentioned kennel blindness earlier.
Yes.
They might have a lot better dog down the road, but say a certain person's going to breed to his own dogs instead of breeding to a better dog.
Yes, sir.
If I'm saying that right, but that's what, if you look at my pedigrees, you'll see a dog that might not say Bayou Cajun kennels, but
yes.
I think that dog might help, my dogs. If my dogs are lacking in a certain area or whatever, I'll go outside just to try to get better dogs.
Yes, sir.
Because Lord knows my dogs can stand a lot of improvement.
I hear you. So who do you think were, let me see what I have. Who were some of the main contributors to the breed of the Plott, like when you were starting it? Not the big five from way long ago. Which, I mean, they still were, but you know what I mean? Like when you first started, who were the biggest contributors putting out the best dogs at that time, and who would you say is now? A couple.
Well, they back then, in the early '80s, Everett went for sure. Him, Leroy Hogg with Swampland Kennels. He probably put out more bear dogs than any other breeder. He shipped them all over the country. Joe Hudson from Shamrock Kennels. A lot of times when I've needed to make an outcross, I've gone to him. And his dogs would go back to a lot of wings, probably 80% wings bred. But, I mean, he's been breeding them, the Shamrock dogs for 50 years or better. So but there's a lot of guys on the East Coast, Roy Clark and Ira Jones. And I don't know of anybody that's probably treed more bear than those guys.
Yes, sir.
They have treed a ton of bear, and they've hunted all over. They've got some good dogs.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of them.
And there's other kennels out there. Eugene Walker, he's had good success with his dogs. So he's from West Virginia. In fact, there's a lot of those Walker brothers up there in West Virginia. That Joe Walker, his dad Norman Walker, have always had a good line of bear dogs. John Harris, who hunted with them, has always had a good line of bear dogs. I mean, those guys never needed any help treeing bear.
Gotcha.
So
that's why I was kind of curious. Like I said, we hear normally of the big five, and then it gets kind of sporadic from there. It's more, I think a lot of it is going to be, when I talk to other people, that is, it's more along a preference line. It's not about, hey, coming from other plot men, which dogs are doing, which kennels were and which lines were producing the best. And that's why I asked that question.
Yeah. I've got another buddy in Tallahassee, Florida, Terry Blanchard. He's had plot dogs 40 years or better. And those Florida boys, they want nose. They talk about out west dry ground line dogs and all. Well, those conditions in Florida are probably just as bad. There's a lot of sand, high humidity, and it's hot, And I tell you, one of the most impressive cold trailing jobs I've ever seen anywhere was we were hunting in Georgia. We had 3 or 4 tracks. We'd killed 3 bear, and it was 12 o'clock. It was already 90 degrees. Well, Terry had found a good set of tracks that we never got to. He said, let's wait till, the heat goes down. We'll come back that evening, and I'll put the dogs on it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we come back about 6 o'clock. He put his dogs out. They trailed out, jumped that bear, probably a little more than a quarter of a mile or whatever, and popped him up right there treating. After the heat of the day had been on those tracks, that was pretty impressive.
Yeah,
we don't know how old those tracks were, made during the night. So,
but anyway, they've been there all day. So, I mean,
yeah, that's exactly right.
What do you think is like the coldest or the oldest track that one of the dogs that you have that you've ever seen take? That you would know of, like, and we talked about this yesterday or day before yesterday about, most of us are just guessing on the age of a track.
Right.
Because, like, unless you've seen it come across and had surveillance on that area the entire time, you don't know how old that track is.
Right. Now, we're going by cameras right now. This buddy of mine, Chad Holstein, I go and hunt with him a few times a year. Mm-hmm. He normally works away from home, but he was coming into town. He called me, said he was putting corn out and a camera on it. Well, he put them out at 3 o'clock, the day before. And I got there about 7. Well, I got there about 6:30, but we got out to where we were hunting about 7. And he told me, he said, Mike, nothing's been to that feeder. So he put it on a hog trail right next to a branch. So I said, well, let's go turn out another spot. We went down maybe half a mile or so, and I put my dancer female out. Well, she started trailing. I knew it was cold. And Chad's dogs came back. They didn't want anything to do with that, but we didn't know how cold that track was then. Well, I told Chad, I said, let's leave her. We'll go turn out in another spot. But I turned my amber female out with her. And she was open a little bit, but not as much as Dancer. So we went on about half an hour. Chad gets a picture on his phone. It was those two dogs trailing past that feeder. And he said, Mike, nothing's been there from 3 o'clock yesterday, the day before. And you know how hogs are. They're going to be bedded down half an hour or so, after daylight, unless, it's raining or something or real cold. But that track was probably 24 hours, just making a guess. And anyway, those dogs crowded on up and jumped.
Yeah, that's pretty good there. Like I said, that's trying to figure out the age on them. It's one of those things that, each person can make a guesstimate on, like, say you got a hog or a track coming across the road. And I've done it, and I'm sure you have too. You put out on a track, and at 200 yards, they get him up and they're running. And I've also had it where you put out on it, and then 3 or 4 hours later, they finally get him up and they're 2 miles deep.
Yeah.
So, and that track could be made at the same amount of time. It just depends on how far that hog went and if he laid down, or there's so many variables in it.
Exactly. Here's the kicker. Conditions are everything. It's like you can have a hog cross the road at say 11 o'clock in the morning, on a summer day. You try to put on him an hour later. Those dogs act like they can't even smell it.
Yeah.
But, like you can have hogs that, like the evening before, and you get there right at daylight, they can trail it fairly easy. But then later on in the day you go with the heat and sun and all that, that track, the smell just evaporates on it. And to give you an idea on condition from here and other places, I sold a dog over to Norway, and he had what I call a good medium to cold nose. I mean, if conditions were right, he could take an 8-10 hour track. They called me back telling me take a 27-hour old track over there and jump the bear.
Wow.
That's, conditions are just different, different places around the country. So it's, I sold a couple of dogs over there. This Kemosabe dog I sold over there, him and that fancy female, they said they could take 15, 17-hour-old tracks pretty regular. And over there, they go by bear sightings. Like they might sight a bear the day before. You get there, the next morning and put out on him.
Yeah, that's, and I think the guys that we deal with that have a good timeline and stay up to par on it would be the blood trackers.
Yeah.
As far as, and that's a whole different deal though, because I've had guys, I've had it from both sides. And you tell me what you think about this. Say you got a deer that was shot, it gives off a different pheromone through its interdigital scent.
Yes.
All right. Well, if you have a hog that's not injured, he's not giving off that extra scent. You know what I mean?
That's right.
If he's just running, so could you, would they be able to trail a 40-hour track on a blood trail, a 40-hour track? That I don't think that means that they could run a 12-hour track on a hog.
Right.
And then again, they could. Like I said, I don't know that it's so many variables in it. It just, some of that stuff, it just intrigues me, and I want to learn as much as I can on it.
Yeah. Well, like if a deer or whatever's dripping a little bit of blood is so much stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And like you're talking about, the pheromones that they put out when wounded. I had a blood dog. I trained up one of my Plott females because the way my daughter and son-in-law shoot, I needed a blood dog. So I trained the female up, and it always amazed me how she could pick out the wounded deer out of half a dozen others that were all there with her when they all took off. But it's the pheromones they put out.
Yes, sir.
My buddy Charlie, he'll take her up to Illinois because he deer hunts up there during bow season. And I told him, I said, if you kill a really good buck, you might want to keep her on a leash because she'll be hanging off that deer. She'll be chewing his ears off, and it might ruin your mount. But anyway, she found several gut shot deer, quarter mile away or so. But that's an old track either. That was normally within an hour to 2 hours after the deer was shot.
Yes, sir.
And but he had one deer, and this was in Mississippi on his lease. Gosh, one of his club members shot it. Well, they went no blood, but they saw bone fragments. So they got her maybe an hour and a half later. This was in a cutover. He couldn't let her, keep her on a leash, so he turned her loose. Well, that dog made that deer it was over 400 yards, he said. And the guy that shot it, he just shot low. Bullet blew one leg off, and the other leg was hanging by skin. And that deer went 400 yards, basically pushing himself. But
it's crazy
when
how tough they are.
Yeah, they heard her baying, and they were getting closer. They heard it start bleeding, So, she had it caught. But
I could see one of them old Plotts just snatching on it.
Yeah, they're not going to go very far, and not all of them are. But that's the way this female was, and that was the reason I made a blood dog out of her, because she was so gritty, and I didn't want to lose her. So
yes, sir. And that's another reason, like I said, that why we kind of started more with the little bit looser bay dog. Yeah, I mean, when you get a dog that's going good and they're really producing game and they're doing everything right, and they're rough or real gritty, well, they wind up getting killed or hurt or out of the game, and it's just disheartening to do that. And I've done it several times, as most people have. That's been in this for a long time. It's hard to just keep starting over.
Yeah. And, I have rethought the grit part of it. If, I back off on the grit, it seems like I'm just not happy with the dogs, and that's, I would rather too much grit than not enough.
Yeah.
And, that's just me. I got a friend, all his dogs are just way back up bay dogs. He doesn't want any vet bills, but he might have 10 Plotts baying a 75, 80-pound show, And,
yeah, see, that's kind of tough there. I'm at that point where I don't really want that. I'm like, if it's 75 pounds and there's 2 or 3 dogs there already, like, go ahead. I don't care.
Yeah.
But once it gets much bigger than that, if it gets to the, our actual maturity size, 125 pounds, to where the hog is physically becoming mature and starts to get teeth and tushes on it, then that changes the game, though.
Yeah.
If they got enough sense and they get whooped a little bit and they'll back up, that's what I'm looking for. It's a little bit of self-preservation.
And another problem we run into out in the marsh, there's a good supply of hogs out there, but they don't get near as big as hogs, up on dry ground. They just don't have as much to eat.
They got big teeth.
But they all have teeth. Yes. Yeah. And those dogs run across, say, 150-pound hog and think they're going to manhandle him. Well, that hog might have 2.5, 3-inch cutters on him, And so that's where we get a lot of dogs sliced and diced.
I can only imagine. Like we'll catch big old mountain hogs, and they'll be 250 to 260, 270, whatever, and they might only have 1.5 inch teeth at the most. And a lot of times we have caught hogs that were that big and barely had any adult teeth. I mean, they're just really big hogs, and
Right.
their teeth grow slower, and they just don't get as big as far as tushes go. Every now and then you'll catch one that has some 2.5 to 3 inch teeth, and that's huge for us.
Okay, I got to
Go ahead.
let me interrupt you just real quick. I've got a different theory on that because I've seen it over here.
Okay.
Those hogs have a lot to eat, so they're growing faster. They're young hogs,
Mm-hmm.
but they've got so much to eat. Their body's outgrowing, their tusk ratio, and I mean they'll get the tusk later on when they get some age on them. But I mean that's my theory.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. Like we've caught hogs that, I mean, 240-pound hogs, and you're like, man, this thing is a dude, and he's got inch and a quarter teeth, and they're little bitty. Mm-hmm. And then when you, like, we have to, we got to dispatch everything, and so when we're skinning this hog, you can tell this is a young hog. His shield really ain't even hard. He's got real full, thick hair, real jet black and glossy, or whatever color. His hair's not thin. He don't have the tail that's dragging the ground. Mm-hmm. There's so many little things, and then we catch a 240 pounder in the same area, and he's got 3 inch teeth, and you can tell that hog is old.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And in the areas, like my working theory on it is that one thing is like in a high density area, typically the pig with the biggest teeth is probably going to win most of the fights. Mm-hmm. So over a long period of time in a high density area, like with a lot of pigs, basically the shorter tusk ones could get culled out because one with some blades
they're the ones breeding in,
yeah. And so over long enough time in a high, now I don't feel like in low density population areas it's probably going to make any effect, but in only high density areas, I feel like some you could technically basically produce bigger teeth just because they're
just like the running factor in a lot of the hogs. How do you feel about that, Mr. Mike? That we've talked to. God, I couldn't tell you how many guests over the past few years, and a lot of them, they have the theory where the hogs run so much is because we caught all the slow ones years ago, and basically the faster hogs that run, they just keep breeding.
Well, I mean, I think there's some merit to that theory because you look at evolution, the fittest survive.
Yes.
That's the hogs that stop and run, they get caught out. So either you're breeding a more athletic, faster hog, or a hog that just wants to run because they have. We have taught quite a few hogs how to run. Over the
too.
Like this past week in this club we were hunting on, we had to tone the dogs back at least 4 or 5 times. Because there was a ton of backwater. The rivers were high, and my buddy's dog Charlie, he had 2 dogs just hammering on a big hog. When he finally got them back, one of them was cut up, and we had a really good boar. He looked like he had 3-inch cutters on the camera, and our dogs split up, and I'm pretty sure Charlie's dogs were on the boar. But we listened to them bait. They were 450 yards across, just nothing but water. We couldn't get to them, so he had to tone his dogs out, and we had several good hogs we put on tracks where they headed right for the river too. We had to tone them, to stop them. Mm-hmm. So those hogs learn all they got to do is run to get away.
Yeah, and I've seen it now. Like the property we're hunting now, I used to hunt it years ago, and then I quit hunting it for what do you think, like 6-7 years, something like that. Yeah. And during that time, there was another couple guys that hunted it, and when they started, they had mostly like tree dog stock, and it was slower hounds, and they were bad open, and they weren't fast enough to really catch the hogs once they started running. And we would go back every now and then and go down there and hunt, and man, the hogs would just run. Now, when we go down there, if we get one jump, I can almost go down there and stand by the edge of the river and say they're coming right here. And they know that if they get to that one gully, that one draw that gets down to the river, that where we had that one the other day. That's all they got to do is hit that spot, and they're home free.
Yeah.
And like I said, so I think that evolution, there's a lot of merit to it. I really feel that.
Well, hogs are very intelligent animals, and science has proved it. So it doesn't take long for them to learn how to get away.
No, not at all.
It's a problem all over, from East Texas, probably Oklahoma, all the way over to the East Coast. That are running hogs. And I used to have a good buddy of mine hunted with me, BB60 Rayburn. Now, he used to have a Marc in the woods. He was, quite a bit older than me, but he loved to run the dogs. But back when he hog hunted and had hogs in the woods, I mean, these hogs were half tame. We had all hardwood woods, all, wide open. And, they didn't have any trouble going there working their hogs, marking them, cutting the boars and all that. Well, then he got out of it for several years. And then when he got back in it, he just couldn't understand how these hogs run now. And I told him, I said, you got two main factors to extinct. He was ex-state senator for Louisiana.
Yes, sir.
And he actually got us into quite a few places to hunt that I couldn't have got in, but he got us in. You're looking at, there's cutover now and Russian hogs. And then you've got a hog hunter around every corner. So, the hogs just get more pressure. It's so thick, a good majority of them get away. So it's, I guess we got to evolve with the hogs. We got to get better dogs.
That's right.
So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. Another guy I used to hunt with, and he was just all full of BS, but he ended up turning some pot-bellied pigs loose in his area just to slow the hogs. I told him, I said, hogs, he need better dogs.
Yeah.
So
There's a guy that had some at, it wasn't too far from here. It's probably an hour. And we used to go up there and catch them, and they were crossed up. And what happened was he actually let his go. When that pot-bellied pig craze went crazy in the 90s, he was raising them and selling them, but he wound up getting dementia. And he would forget that he even had them. And anyway, so the county came out there. One of them had got out. Somebody hit it in the car. They told him he was going to have to do something because he had so many. He goes out there and just opens the gate. And the only wild hog population at the time that we knew of was right there where he lived at. Was very close. And it didn't take long till the feral pigs started crossbreeding those pot-bellied pigs. And when I tell you we had fun, we had fun.
I bet.
We've caught him under his house, on his porch, under the trucks. I mean, you name it, we caught them. And those little dudes were like little I don't know, like rhinoceroses, really. Some of them were, I don't know, 200 pounds, but they wouldn't knee high.
They'd just be like little barrels.
Yeah, and they would have, some of them had some teeth. We had one that this is back when we could keep live hogs. We had one that we kept just to train, and he whooped many of them.
Yeah.
And it, like I said, it didn't make our dogs any better, but it was fun.
Oh yeah. Well, there you go with the evolution thing. Y'all caught all the easy hogs out, and getting right back to, the other stuff. We, back when the Russian hogs were brought in, we were real protective of them. We were trying to take out any off-colored hogs, like, solid black or spotted hogs. And, if we called them just feral hogs, the boars, they were cut. And, we moved the Russian hogs around to different areas. And this was long before there was a stigma about, relocating hogs or whatever.
Yes.
So, and to this day, we still, like, behind the house, we got pretty good Russian hogs, and, we'll cut, any off-colored hog or whatever, or kill it, to get it out of there.
Yeah. And, that's, I made a post the other day. We went hunting and we caught a nice little boar hog, and we dispatched it and we cooked it. And there's just so many people, they have, actually T.L. Jones had made a post about wild hogs. He said, wild hogs should be managed, not demonized. And,
right.
Yeah. And I don't get it. Like nobody, I ain't gonna say nobody, but a large majority of even people that hog hunt now, they're like, oh, y'all can eat them? Like, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can eat them. And I don't know why they don't know this,
Right.
It's
and
go ahead.
It used to kill me to kill a hog. I mean, we always caught and tied, and but with the laws changing and all that, I mean, there's places now, a lot of farms. If you're not going to kill them, you're not going to hunt there.
That's right.
So I had to change my ways on that, my way of thinking if I wanted to hunt.
Yep.
But that's and any animal, if it's left unregulated, becomes a problem.
Yes.
And there are a lot of places where there's way too many hogs, but a lot of it's the landowner's fault. They won't let hog hunters in there to hunt them. And, so, especially over in Texas where, the deer's king over there.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't want any dogs in there, messing up their deer or deer hunters. But, hog hunters can do a lot of good, and what they don't catch, those hogs will move away from pressure.
Yes,
You can't run a deer off. A deer will come back within 24 hours to his home territory.
Yeah.
And but hogs, you keep it going in there, dog them, they're leaving at least for a while.
Yes, they sure will. And that, talking about the landowners and stuff like that, and the deer hunting and all that. This goes into correlation with what I was talking about eating the wild hogs. Used to, you wanted to bar a hog and or have you a good sow, and that would be your meat hog. Well, now even these boar hogs, we killed that one the other day, was 200, 225. I don't know what he weighed. He's a couple 100 pounds at least, and that rascal was fat. He wasn't as fat as some of them that we've caught, but used to, they didn't have hardly any fat on them. Now everybody's feeding corn to all the deer, deer, turkey, and whatever else, and these hogs are sitting there eating their corn up. So used to, we'd catch hogs, bring them home, and feed them out for a couple weeks. Well, now they're already doing that for you. You're getting corn-fed hogs right out of the woods.
You get a good acorn crop in the fall, that plus the corn.
Yes, it's amazing.
You kill pigs in November, they'll have 2-3 inches of fat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we've killed them where they've had as much fat as any domestic hog.
Well, that one we killed for mine and my wife's wedding last November, my mother-in-law rendered down some lard off of it. And I was like, that's the first time I've ever done that.
Yeah. That's pretty crazy.
I've told my buddy, he won't eat a boar hog. And I have told him, if it's fat, it's going to eat good.
Yep.
And I made some sausage up off. It's a good sized boar, about maybe 250, but he was fat. Ground him all up, and anyway, either Charlie normally makes sausage for every hunt. We make sandwiches when we're out in the field, but I brought him some sausage off that boar hog, and he liked it pretty good till I told him what it was. He said, "That's a boar?" I said, "Yeah, that's off a boar hog." And he couldn't hardly believe it. But to me, the best eating hog out there is a bar hog. You can't hardly beat them. But any hog that's fat will eat good.
That's right. I agree with that. If it's got fat on it, it's definitely going to eat good.
Yeah. That's right.
And there's just, like I said, it's just been demonized for so long, man. It's the media. They have got it to where, these hogs are the devil. They're the worst things ever. They're just subterranean trash,
Well, again, those people from Pearl River don't believe that because we have fed half the town. I can promise you.
There you go. Oh man. Well,
And my freezer stays pretty stocked with pork, so we pretty well eat whatever we kill. So
yeah, we try to be the same way. We try not to waste anything. I mean, whether we do it for that or there's been plenty of times we take and got a big cauldron out there. We'll take and boil it and make some, basically a broth and put over the dog's feed. We fed it to the dogs. We've done it every way you can do it. We just try not to waste anything.
yeah.
We
were up in Canada, and I was on a sandbar following some bear tracks, and I just happened to look to my left. There was a huge snapping turtle a little bit farther up on the sandbar, and he tried to skittle daddle around me. I grabbed him by the tail. That thing probably weighed 40 pounds, and we took him home and cleaned him. We had turtle for dinner.
Mm-hmm.
So it's we always had two guys that came with us. Now they were turtle hunters during the summer. They were from Iowa.
Yeah.
And they always brought turtle meat up, and they knew how to cook it too. It was good. So when I had the opportunity, I caught that one and brought it in.
Went ahead and put it to work, huh? Man.
But following these dogs, I mean, and like y'all with the podcast, y'all have met people all over the country, good people.
Yes.
And I have met so many lifelong friends through these dogs. So
yeah, it's definitely taken us places, and to get to talk to people like yourself. Like I said, I've been knowing your name and about your line of dogs for, ever since I can remember, really. Ever since I started hunting, for sure. Which I was raised into hunting, but I didn't hog hunt until I moved to Alabama and was already an adult. So I've only been hog hunting, running hog dogs for about 20 years. But,
yeah, what part of Alabama are y'all from?
Jasper. It's if you took Birmingham and Tuscaloosa and drew a line west and drew a line north, they would meet, and that's about where Jasper's at. We're 30 minutes west of Birmingham, 40 minutes north of Tuscaloosa.
Okay. So are y'all hunting a lot of national forests up there?
No, sir.
We can't run hogs on any public.
Yeah, we can't run hog dogs on any public. We can. I take that back. You can run some of the national forest areas, but you can't run any management area at all.
Yeah.
There's pretty much no kind of public land hunting that you can really do to where there's any hogs, is what I'm saying. There's places that you can hunt, but there's not any hogs there.
Yeah. Yeah, like you had mentioned earlier, we're losing places to run left and right, and, to run hounds, you need a good bit of property.
Yes, sir.
So.
And that's why I had to back up and go to the rougher dogs. We lost a lot of big properties. 5,000, 7, 8, 10,000 acres. We lost a lot of them, and it got down to 800,000, 1,500 acres. And man, it was hard to run any big country dogs,
Right.
So now it's like, because I had a few dogs that were, they could get it done when I hunted a lot bigger places. And a lot of the timber companies, they started selling off, and a lot of people from other states and out of town, they're breaking all these up to smaller parcels for deer hunting, and leasing them out like that. And they don't want us on none of that property.
Yeah.
And so it's it got kind of frustrating, but I've got back into some bigger places now, and we can run a bigger, more rangier dog now. So that's one reason why I was just tired of the rough dogs. I wish we could hunt some public land that had hogs.
Right. Yeah. Normally the public land we hunt's the management areas in February, when they open up.
Mm-hmm. Y'all usually catch quite a few?
Yeah, we do. Now, hog numbers were kind of down this year than what they've normally been. I I guess we've heard them over the years, but I don't know. I mean, we weren't setting any records this year by any means, but I think we've caught probably at least 60 out there in February.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's a lot of hogs.
It's but it'll spoil you.
Yeah.
You know, now back to dry ground hunt and running hogs. You know, not saying they don't run in the marsh, because if you get on a runner out there, it's normally going to be a good sport. Yeah. But yeah, some of them will run pretty good, but most of them, those dogs are going to run them down in the marsh.
Yeah, I talked to quite a few guys that hunt the marsh, and I've never hunted in the marsh. Like I said, I guess Fargo's about the closest place that we've ever come to anything that, and it's not the same, I know, but I'd love to come hunt the marsh sometime and just see what the difference is.
Well, we might have to plan a trip probably for next February. You know, if you want to get in on a lot of hogs.
Yeah, we can do that.
I'll tell you about the marsh.
All right. It's
easy to get dogs on hogs, but it's not always easy to get to the dogs that are baying the hogs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you got a mud boat, that makes it a whole lot easier.
Okay.
So that's
I might have to wrestle me a mud boat up before I come visit then.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun though, and you know it's and it depends on what part of the marsh. There's some marsh out there that's a little drier ground than others, but it's still not what you'd call an easy hunt. It's really a young man's game out there.
Yes, sir.
So we always make sure we bring some young guys.
Yeah, I could see where that would definitely be beneficial.
Yeah, that's like I'm in the boat like Marlon Perkins telling Jim, "Go get him, Jim."
Oh man! So, what advice do you got for any kind of newcomers to that's to the sport, and then also somebody who's interested in the Plott breed? What advice do you got you could give them to make it a little better for them?
As far as getting into it, you know, they need to get with somebody established, you know, out there, go and hunt with them, help out and all that before they ever get any dogs, I think, you know, and see if that's what they really want. You know, a lot of people get into it, get dogs. They don't really know how to train them or what it takes to train them. And, you know, for those newcomers, I would say buy a finished dog, hunt with a dog. And I don't care who it is, you hunt with a dog, you know, to make sure it's a good dog and it's what it's said to be. Mm. You know, and that's don't ever go back to a person's spots. You know, that's why a lot of people don't want to bring any newcomers. Yep. Because they get backdoored all the time. And, you know, I've had it happen several times, and it's, you know, I just can't hardly stand it when they do. There's nothing you can do about it. And, you know, as far as plots, I used to give away, I mean, puppies all the time, but probably, I guess about 10 years ago, I gave away 4 pups to a young guy that wanted to get started. Well, a month later, he had them on Facebook for sale. Bayou Cajun plots.
Oh,
you know,
goodness.
That'll put a sour taste in your mouth.
Oh yeah, it will. I just got a call yesterday. I should call him out, but I ain't gonna do him like that. But not right now, because I'm still mad about it. But anyway, I had a litter, and I was not getting rid of any of them. And me and Nate talked about it, and Nate said, "Dad, I think you know, we need to try to get him one," and we did. And he said, "Well, the puppy barks too much. My dad's gonna make me get rid of it." Blah blah blah. I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, let the guy that's been taking him hunting, his mentor, he said he would take it and raise it and hunt it." I said, "If it goes anywhere, it comes back to me." He called me yesterday. He said, "Well, I went over to get that puppy." He said, "It ain't there." I said, "Well, did he give it away or sell it?" He said, "No, he dropped it off up there on such and such road."
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I said, you could have just knocked it in the head, sold it, give it away. And I wouldn't been happy by no means, but you just took and dumped it out on the side of the road. That's about, and that's why I said I ought to go ahead and call his name out, but he's a young guy, and I kind of done it to myself, I guess, because I had every intention of not doing it, but I also was like, man, I'm trying to help somebody out, and he was around the right people, and those people spoke up for him too. It's one of those deals, and when they do that, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. It makes it where you don't want to help nobody.
I don't understand people like that. I really don't. It's it just boggles my mind. People can act like that, but in all aspects of life and all, there's bad apples in everyone. I'm not saying he's a bad kid, but he just didn't think enough about what he was doing.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, somebody else was sitting right there and told him, said, man, I'll come get the pup. It's no big deal, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, well, I just couldn't wait. And it was like, aggravated because he's a young guy. But at the same time, his dad was the one pushing him to do it.
Yeah.
So that's aggravating in itself. It's like, okay, he's a grown man. And like I said, I'm not tooting my horn by no means, but I got a list of people that want puppies. And, I kind of just like, here. And it was my pick. It was my pick. So I was like, well, you take mine. And then just dump it out on the side of the road. And they went up there to try to find it, and they couldn't find the puppy. So I don't know if it was run over, coyote ate it, somebody picked it up, whatever.
Right.
But like you said, and those are the same ones that'll go back and backdoor you.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So it's better to find all this out right now than to wait later, I guess.
Yeah.
It sucks. And there's a lot of them out there that do it. So all you guys out there listening, y'all pay attention to that.
Yeah. Just try to treat your dog man or anybody the way you want to be treated.
Yes, sir.
Ain't
no doubt. Well, you got anything else you want to add to this one, Mr. Mike? I mean, it's been great having you on here for sure.
Yeah, we've covered, I think, pretty much everything.
We got a couple of hours in on this one.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Been a pleasure talking to y'all.
Oh, man, anytime.
All right, got another question for you.
Yeah.
Because I know y'all hunt all over.
Mm-hmm.
What's been your favorite place to hog hunt?
Mine personally was North Carolina. North Carolina. It was bigger mountains is what I wanted.
Yep. Nate's was, and I have to say to me, it was more of one of those, man, this was a hunt. And it was great. I also have to say, man, about anywhere in Georgia has been phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason I say that, it's because there's so many, I ain't gonna say there's the places we've been, there's been a lot of hogs. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of action, right. It's a good hunt. It's a good time to do the whole thing. But it's like, I had to I'm on that line with Nate right there with the North Carolina hunt because it was challenging. We caught one of the biggest hogs we've ever caught.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not huge on riding in the truck all day, riding on side by sides. I like either cast hunting or walk hunting.
Yeah.
I don't really like either of them between. And a lot of people like to get out there drinking and carrying on. That's not really what I'm there for. So I want to hunt, and I'm young, so I want to kind of still push myself while I can. And so we get a big race in, you go in there and you got to hike in, you finally get the pig, and then it's some work to get it out. Mm-hmm. To me, a lot of times that's just as fun. It's not fun, but you can make fun because everybody's tired. You're making fun of each other. It's like, oh, you're being a puss. Come on, pull it. It ain't that heavy. And,
it was a hard hunt.
Yeah.
But it was a good hunt.
Yeah.
But as far, like I said, that's one of those, I think everybody needs to go on those type hunts. And we go on those type hunts all the time here in Alabama. This is a very diverse state. I've learned that over the years. We can go to southeast Alabama and be in large agriculture. We can go to southwest Alabama and be in marsh and river bottoms, wide open country. We can go to Central Alabama and be in some rolling hills. We can go to North Alabama and be in the mountains.
Right.
And everything in between. And so we start all our dogs up here in the north side to where there's very few pigs and they have to work.
Yes.
And then when we go on these other places, it seems like it's a little better.
Yeah.
The dogs are definitely in good shape.
Yeah. And that, take an average dog, but if he's fit, he's going to outdo a better dog that's not fit.
Yes.
But
without a doubt.
Probably 40 years ago, I was probably early 20s. My buddy Terry, we were bear hunting up in North Georgia, and they call them the foothills of the Smokies, but those are mountains.
Yeah.
And we were following. We had, a big bear, probably 400-pound bear, bayed up, and we'd go in there, try to get dogs, he'd break and run. And anyway, we would walk up those mountains, and we were following this friend of ours, Bud. Now, Bud was a chain smoker, but he grew up in those mountains.
Yeah.
He was a hogger all his life. He'd get 100 yards ahead of us. He'd be puffing on a cigarette, waiting for me and Terry to catch up.
Yeah.
Then before he'd give us a break, he'd take off again. But those were some rough mountains, but it was fun. It was getting in there, seeing the bear, watching the dogs working.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good time.
Yeah, that we originally went to North Carolina to hunt bear. We went with Jacob Matheson and Mr. Andy Blankenship. And and we went up there and we had a race. That old bear, he didn't want a tree. We ran him. He come back across the main road and was hitting the golf course. So we had to catch the dogs up. And that's all I wanted. Right? That was plenty for me. And like I said, we're standing up there on top of the mountains. The clouds, we're right above the clouds. The sun's coming up. All them hounds down there just blowing up. You could hear the roar coming from the valley. And it's just I don't know. It just does something to you.
Yeah.
I didn't need to kill nothing. That was all I needed. It changed my whole life for real. Like, I went from straight running catch dogs and just a couple of bay dogs here and there. So let them talk. Let them talk.
Yeah.
Oh, and I got some brindle long-eared dogs out there. They're cur dogs, but they look like Plotts.
Uh-huh.
That's how much it's rubbed off on me.
That's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, that's what it is. And I'll be honest, if people say, God puts you in these places and he put everything is for a reason. And I have to sit back and evaluate that sometimes because I have been around some of the top name Plott men in the past year. And like right all around me. And I talk to them all the time. I'm like, I wonder if I'm going to have some Plotts.
Well, we can. You get a couple of Plotts, though, that might change your mind and you'll go straight back to curs.
That's what a couple have told me. They're like, well, it's all fun and games until you get serious with it.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I'll be the first to say they're not for everybody.
Yes, sir.
But as far as bear hunting, to me, I might have hunted with a couple of dogs, other breed of tree hounds but they just didn't have to me what the Plotts had.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got a friend of ours up in Wisconsin. He runs blue tick, but he won't hunt with us because our Plotts are a good bit faster than his dogs. But yet that man trees a lot of bear.
Yes, sir.
So it's it all depends on what you like, and what you like, just enjoy it and have fun.
Yeah. And that's the truth right there. Whatever makes you happy, that's what you need.
That's right.
I really feel that way. And I won't knock another man, for what he's running or how he's hunting or if it works for him and he's happy, shoot, I'd cheer for him.
So,
I honestly say that. So
Yeah.
Well, that'll work, Mr. Mike. We've done held you up, and we don't want to take up all your time, but
I sure enjoyed it. So
yes, I might dig out some more questions later on. We might have to call you back someday.
Anytime.
All right. Well, I might call you and just talk dogs, and just me and you talk, or like I said, and in February I might have to just slide on down there and come see you.
Okay, y'all be more than welcome.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mike. You have a good day.
All right, you too. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mike.
Thank you.
There we go. Man, there's one of the legends. Boys, that was a good one there. He ain't no telling how many dogs that man has produced. Good dogs. And he's just, pretty humble, laid back, chilled.
I think he's extremely humble.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, very much so, yeah. But, I mean, just like, that's why, that's one thing I will say. Most of the Plott guys that I've talked to, most all of them are very similar in that aspect. There ain't none of them out there just blowing their own horn. I know some walker dog guys that'll tell you real quick they got the best. And I ain't picking on them by no means. But I'm just saying. And that might be why the Plott guys don't say nothing. They might just be like, well, let them other guys do talking.
Yeah.
So, well, we definitely going to come down there and hunt with Mr. Mike. We're going to put that on the book. For sure. I got to find a mud boat. So, all right, y'all, that's another one in the books. We got to get out here and get busy. We appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for listening to us. Y'all make sure to keep eye out. Check out all our social media stuff. Like the same thing I say every damn time. Check out the Patreon account. We got a good bit of stuff uploaded to it. You can get on there and get your subscription set up. Anything that you do on that will help us continue to do this. That's one of the things that really will help. So, we appreciate y'all. Thanks to all our sponsors. Thanks to all our listeners. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Till the next one.
Thank you. Hope you enjoyed that episode. If there's anything or anyone you'd like to hear on the podcast, or if you'd like to come hunt with us, don't hesitate to contact us at dixiedoggers01@gmail.com.